Oh, good job, dude. Good job, man. We got a point. Hands down.
Meeting kids and seeing those behaviors is hard, and it's kind of heart-wrenching because, again, you could see somebody hurting themselves and you're like, well, why are they doing that? Well, they're trying to tell us something.
The way it's changed me is it's given me the room and the awareness to give people that extra time.
Before this person is autistic, they are a person. And so we would say children with autism or person with autism instead of saying autistic person. It's people first, people-centered, right? This is a person before they are their disorder. Autism is a neurological disorder.
Developmental disability
That affects the brain,
restricts kids.
it affects the connections in the brain and the way that we intake things from the external environment.
From breaking outside of their routine, from maintaining relationships and trying new things.
Children with autism are not learning as fast as their typical peers because of this neurological disorder. Autism is widely varied. It changes with each and every kiddo. Not that the disorder changes, but that it presents itself differently with each and every child.
Can I do it?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yes.
What do you say to Alex?
Thanks, Alex.
You're so welcome, buddy.
So ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis, and it's a scientific discipline created in order to increase behaviors that we want to see more of, decrease behaviors that we want to see less of, so that kids fit into a typical classroom or can work in a job without being outed, or be in a social situation where people aren't picking them out and saying, you know, that person is different.
A kid with autism really likes certain things, and they have a hard time inviting people in or letting them into their world. And the coolest thing that you can do is find your own appropriate way into their world and share it with them.
Once you start to meet different kids with autism, you start to understand a little bit more what the characteristics of autism are. And it's important to know those and to see those. So it could be jumping, it could be the hand flapping, it could be banging, it could be all of these are the things that look a little bit different than what we do, right? And the kids are trying to release some sensory need that we can all release, let's say, by just relaxing and folding our arms, or we can stand a certain way and get a feeling in our body that is comforting or relaxing, some sort of like stillness, whereas a lot of the kids, they don't have that function.
Reach. Yeah, let's go. Kick. Snare. So let's hold this. And we're going to go kick. Snare. Hit snare. All right, kick. Snare. Look down. Kick. Snare. Kick.
The whole point of sports social, I think, in my mind, is to create happiness and to create little humans that have fulfillment and feel like they have a purpose. The biggest thing that we do is we teach social skills through positive outlets. Music, skateboarding, basketball, soccer, all those things really have complex levels of social aspects and components while working on gross motor functions, fine motor functions. A lot of kids with autism like to do weird things, whether that be self-stimulatory behavior, obsessive compulsive behaviors. We really try to make them okay with that and access that in a more appropriate way, and then maybe just being confident that that's okay as long as they're doing it in a cool way. One of the first things they teach you when teaching ABA therapy is to follow through. And a kid with autism really responds well to follow through. So if you are asking to be part of their world, if you're trying to get them to talk to, if you're trying to get things out of a kid with autism, you need to follow through and make sure that it's not just one-sided. You need to make sure that they know that you're not there to judge them or correct what they're doing, but maybe just give them a more appropriate way to do it.
When I first started, I really didn't know what I was doing. Obviously they train us, but autism is so varied that you go into one home where there's a 4-year-old with autism, and then you go into another home where there's a 4-year-old with autism, and you're working with a completely different kid. So it's not like autism is this like steady thing. It's very dynamic, it's very differentiated. Therefore, you have to manipulate the environment and the way that you work with that kiddo different ways in each situation.
I found out both of my kids were autistic. Well, I mean, at home I noticed that there were things that were very different. They weren't hitting milestones. They weren't hitting the proper milestones when they were small, and I thought, okay, something is going on. Finding out that they had autism, it was a completely different world than what most people who don't have autistic children have to go through. Leo would line up cars in a perfect row, and if you would move one, he would just lose his mind. Living with autism has basically just taught me to be more patient. I was always patient before, but it gives you an overabundance of patience. Like, I remember when he would scream at the top of his lungs for hours. I would go in the pantry and have to count to 10. It was something that through trial and tribulation, you just had to learn over time. Each kid is different. Leo is quite different than Draven. Babies to toddlers to teenagers, it's quite a different world. But you pay attention to each one's personality so that you can help them through those things by learning who they are. My youngest gets bullied a lot, and my hope for him is that people will just be a bit more kind and understanding and open-hearted. I want people to look at them and see, what, just because they have this doesn't mean that they can't do the things that normal everyday kids can do. They can do that and then some. And they have such big hearts, and I want the world to recognize them for the heart and the contributions that they can do, rather than looking at them for the things that they can't do. I came up with Touched by Autism one day on a photo shoot. I was doing a shoot with an older gentleman who has autism. He had touched my heart in this photo shoot so quickly, and I looked at him and I was like, you know what? Everyone is touched by autism. And it just clicked. I was like, wait a second, that would be a great t-shirt. And I designed the logo. It's a circle of puzzle pieces. I had told my older son, Leo, that he had to get a job. He applied for a job and didn't receive much feedback. He came up with the idea of, well, Mom, we can take the handprint, my handprint, and put it in the center of the logo on the t-shirt. And he's like, I could just do that all summer. He's like, I could, put my handprint on t-shirts and we can sell those t-shirts. And he's like, that can be my job for the summer. The purpose of Touched by Autism is to help people like Leo, kids like Leo that have autism, to get a job in the future. The t-shirts with Touched by Autism, we could send those teenagers, of course, and up who are looking for employment. Basically, you're putting your hand in paint and you're touching it down on the t-shirt. They send those back and then we sell those to people, and each one is an individual piece of art. To me, for those people who just really struggle with getting out of the house and interacting with others, this is, to me, a good job for them, because it's something that's in their home and they're in a comfortable space. And that gives them a sense of contributing and feeling like they're doing something.
When I'm training new instructors, what I tell them is, remember that at the end of the day at 8:30 at night or whenever, you get to clock out. You get to just go hit a button and you are done with autism, and these kids do not get to clock out. If the parent could change their kid or just take away that behavior or take away that hard time, they would.
It's sad in a sense, because you want all kids to be included. You want all inclusiveness. When you see that they're not, it makes you want to do everything in your power to figure out a way to help that kiddo and to design a curriculum that's going to work for them. My message would be to not judge people as fast as we typically do, especially in America. We're very judgmental. We see another person, they have something that we want, so we judge them for it. Or we see somebody that has something that we don't want and we judge them for it.
The worst kind of social pressure can be like judgment or a lack of understanding. Make sure that you're teaching your kid to interact with that kid appropriately, like have that kid sit with you at lunch.
We're all human beings, and that we're all trying to get our needs met on an hour-to-hour, minute-to-minute, second-to-second basis. It's inspiring, and I think it drives all of us to find a new fire within ourselves to, again, do what we can to just help,
The best way that we can show the way is by leading the way.